All right, we are live. So you're probably watching this because you're a dad and you are working in tech, or you have a tech enabled type job or in the tech field or tech adjacent, and you saw this and you're like, oh, let me come check this out. And working in this industry, you know that it's things are pretty demanding. It's pretty stressful. Especially what's going on right now, and you're probably wondering, like stressed out or overwhelmed with the fact that you're trying to provide for your family during this like economic times that we're going through. And you're maybe thinking about cooking, and this is just like all too overwhelming. And I'm sure this is all very familiar to you. So, but I'm Mr. Manzino, and during the day, I'm actually a technical product manager. In my 5 to 9, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, and I'm a dad cook. And I've been cooking for about 21 years, and I've been helping dads with young kids to be able to make deliciously simple meals in under 2 hours a week. And I'm gonna just spill the beans on the top 8 things that I've learned from my tech career, or in building products and whatnot, and how that I've applied that to my cooking, and it allowed me to become a dad cook and balance these things between being a father and cooking for my family. My goal is to help simplify this process for you, so you can make family dinners great again. So, oh, and if you don't mind, like, subscribe, and check out some of the resources below. I have a course called Meal Machine OS. We actually go deeper into these topics, and yeah, let's get to it. So I'm gonna actually just share my screen because just give me a second. Let me find how to do that. I'm still working on how to do these types of things. And present. Here we go. Share screen. All right, here we're doing it. All right, so we're here. We're gonna present. All right, so from tech to table, as they say. So let's get into it. So the first thing that you want to do is that I've learned is that you got to make the first thing. And what that means effectively is that the first thing that is a priority in your life needs to be the first thing that you do when you wake up. So for me, it's been exercise. I think it's important to stay healthy for yourself and your family, and then it's cooking. And so what that means for me is that people will bitch and moan and gripe about not having enough time, and I don't have enough time to exercise, I don't have enough time to cook. Hey, buddy, man, you got to just get up early. I mean, that's what it is. That means you got to shift a little bit of your life a bit to kind of go to bed earlier. I go to bed at 9. People think that's crazy. I don't really care. I get up at 9, and I go to bed at 9. I get up around 4 ish to 5 a.m. I'm not awake. I'm not sleeping past 5 o'clock. And I'm usually going to the park to go do some exercise, or going in my backyard. And then I'm also like getting things out of the freezer and getting things ready for the day for cooking, if it's a cooking day. So you got to make the first thing the first thing. So that's like the number one thing, is just, prioritization and having that be the number one thing you do. All right. The next thing I've learned quite a bit is, and I've taken from sort of the tech industry, is this idea of programming. Um, and, programming is this thing that like you can have like a really great recipe, and you can have like a really great idea of like what you want to do for your cooking. But if you don't have a structure for how you're kind of, allocating your days and time, you're going to really it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to cook and stay cooking for yourself and your family. And so this comes back to sort of like, how do you program your days? How do you program your week? And for me, I like to make things a little bit more on the sort of thematic end. So thematically, I like to, break up the days on, Sundays is more of like a meal prep day. Mondays are going to be, doing like a little bit of something where I'm actually maybe it's like a meatless Monday, or could be like a one pot meal on Wednesdays, which is today. It could be, Saturdays could be date night or family dinners, whatever. Fish Fridays, whatever you want to make up your themes during the week. Just choose a theme and choose a day and make that the day. So you don't ever have to think about what it is that you're doing for that meal. This is a huge thing. It's just people, the idea of having to constantly think and think and think about like what you're going to be doing for your meals is what is so overwhelming and gets people to not cook. So I think being able to structure your days in such a way is important. Um, Paul Graham, guy started Y Combinator, one of the incubators that launched Airbnb, Stripe, Dropbox, and a bunch of other major tech companies. He has this idea of like having like a manager schedule and a create like a maker schedule, and so it's just about kind of like thinking. I like that because it gives you a sense of like, okay, these are the days that I do these creative things and I dedicate that time to be able to do it. So, another thing that I learned from being a technical product manager is this idea of going to the next slide here. It's related, but it's about batching what you're doing. And I think what in software, this is a really important concept, which is to do as much like batch jobs as possible, so you're not like hitting servers and some people call it caching or whatever it is. So the idea is to batch the activities of what you're trying to do. And so how do I cook you know amazing, delicious, simple meals in less than like 2 to 3 hours a week? It's by batching. I don't do more than I cook on a Sunday. I make that the ritual. I make that the thing. I cook a bigger sort of set of meals where I'm batch cooking like a bunch of like protein, chicken, and uh, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is that I'm cooking that day. And I also do another batch day on Wednesday. And so throughout the week, it's literally like 10 minutes. That's, and part of that time is actually just heating up the food. Um, so batching is like really, really important. And that goes the same thing for shopping. Like we don't have time to shop, right? I mean, I like going to the market. I like going and trying, seeing what's going on. But I typically will make Saturdays the shopping day. And so, we're dads, we're families. Like this stuff is boring, man. It's not like I'm not going to parties, I'm not going to clubs. And obviously this is flexible, right? These frameworks are not meant to be religion or religious or dogmatic. It's just a framework to help you not have to think about when you're, this whole cooking thing. Um, and I learned a lot of this stuff from, working in tech, but basically, even with batching your shopping is really important. So we typically will do Saturdays as like our batch shopping day. So we'll like spend morning, we'll go to the farmer's market. And then in the afternoon or like later after that, we'll go to like a Whole Foods or a Costco or something like that. And we make this like a family event. It's like a fun thing to like, it's something to do. We're always looking for something to do as parents. So this is just another thing to do. All right. The next tactic and thing that I learned. All right. So there's a really great book by the folks from Amazon. Jeff Bezos talks a lot about this, but there's a book called Working Backwards. And it's such a great concept because it helps you visualize what the end in mind, at the end, at the beginning. And so what happens a lot of times, people freak out when it comes to cooking because they're like, oh, there's like all these steps and there's all these things that you got to do. And so you just think backwards, just start with the thing that is the end, which is, in a lot of cases, it's it's setting the table, it's cleaning and clearing your station, it's reviewing the recipe, it's identifying your rate limiting steps, and then it's sequencing your, what's the order of operations. Are you doing your protein first and then your carbs and whatever? And then, prepping everything and then actually cooking. So once you've kind of worked backwards from what you're going to do, it becomes a lot easier to basically kind of like get down to the nitty gritty steps to be able to actually, cook and be successful. And I use this all the time too, when we're thinking about like a launch for like a product or something. Like, what does the email look like? And then just work backwards from those, like the steps, to be able to get to the core atomized component. And then you can actually, ship and do the things that you're going to do. All right. The next hack tip thing that I've learned. This one comes from a guy named Shreyas Doshi. He's like a successful PM, like one of the top PMs in the world, for some of the big tech companies. And he has this this framework called LNO, which is like his prioritization framework. And so I apply this when I'm cooking as well, funny enough. And L is for leverage. Do your leverage tasks first that are going to have the highest impact on the outcome that you're trying to achieve. N is your neutral tasks, and then O is your sort of what the heck do they call the O? What's the O? What's the O? What's the O? I don't remember. Oh, overhead tasks. That's right. So you're going to do your overhead tasks. So it's interesting, like by doing this, you can kind of get like get ahead of like how you the order of operations of like how you cook. So for me, the way I've applied this in my cooking on my day to day is to start with your the leverage tasks being your rate limiting steps. For me, I would start there, which is like turning on the pot of water to boil, because that could take like 10 minutes, right? Or turning on the oven. Okay, that's a leverage task. The other leverage tasks I like to do first are my proteins. And the reason why I like to do proteins first is because proteins take a lot longer to cook, and especially if you're going to like be roasting or braising, or even just doing the basic like step to do the marination or whatever it is you're going to do that first. So I like to break it up by doing your protein first, then your carb, then your veggie, and if you're doing a sauce, do a sauce as well. So that's just another little hack and tip that I recommend. All right. The next one is in project management and in product development, like people really obsess around tooling and getting the right tool and using all these like intricate processes and frameworks and stuff like that. Like Apple, for example, I heard this thing that like Apple, when they shipped the iPhone, like didn't use like the Scrum project management process to be able to and track it in Jira, and using all these like Kanban boards and all this crazy stuff, right? They were just really clear, like, what are we working on this week? We'll do a check-in with stakeholders once a week, and we ship that thing every single week, and we align every week on what we're doing. Like, I think people really obsess a lot with like management tools in the kitchen for like what do I have in my kitchen, and I'm going to use Notion, and to be able to like develop this recipe. I mean, you could do whatever the hell in the f you want. Um, do whatever you want. I don't really care. I use a pen and paper sometimes. I just go to websites that I like. I just pick and choose. I've gotten to a point where I don't really, I just, I put stuff in like Evernote, Apple Notes. It's a mess, but I don't really care. It's not like I'm not like I'm doing this for the rest of my life. I don't need to be super obsessed around the tool. Honestly, I use just a lot of like pen and paper, and it works fine. It works perfectly fine. So I would just recommend like think like Apple here and how they've built their products and how they've done things. And like they don't use a ton of tooling to be able to like ship some of the most beautiful and amazing products in the world. All right. The next tactic, number 7, is I if you've been if you've been around in the tech industry long enough, and maybe you've gotten one of these surveys after you've like purchased something or used a service, it's they'll ask like how likely would you be to recommend this product or service, and you scale it on like 1 to 10, and that's used as part of this thing called the Net Promoter Score. Well, I call it the Net Cooking Score, and I like this because the Net Cooking Score is a way for me after every single meal to ask my wife, and to ask kids, and even friends and family, like, hey, I want notes, like what would you eat this again? I usually just ask, would you eat this again? And the funny thing is, like, yeah, I get various, people are really honest. My wife is brutal sometimes with me about some of this stuff, and I'm like, oh dang, like if it was good for her, like she's got very good taste, so if it was good for her, I'll do it again. So that's what I kind of use. That's how I kind of mentally think about. And I should start maybe tracking this stuff. It'd be kind of fun to see what people are digging and not digging. But yeah, this is a great way to even like measure and track things with like your kids. Like, what do they like? Like, what are they liking? What are they not liking? And using this as a way to kind of like, I apply this all the time to get a feedback loop. And that's really important in product and in tech. It's like, what is that feedback loop so that you can make yourself better, right? And then this is the last thing that I kind of lifted from the tech industry and I use is OKRs. Like, I'm not the biggest fan in tech, in my product development with OKRs, but what I like about it is that it provides like a holistic focus. And I think on a quarterly level, what I like about that is to focus on something that you want to get better at. Like, the biggest room in my house is my room for improvement. especially when it comes to cooking. And so for me, like this is really important. Like maybe it's like I want to get better at like a certain dietary thing. Like, okay, hey, we're gonna be cutting out sugar. We're gonna, or like, let's say we're trying to get shredded for the summer or something. And so we want to be able to like, maybe eat less of something. So I'm going to be looking at and exploring and what are we actually doing the thing that we said that we're going to do, and like getting better at that. Um, the other thing that it could also just be like I want to get better at a certain technique. Like it could be around I want to get really better at braising, or I want to get better at or a specific ethnic cuisine. Like I want to get better at like Thai food or Mexican food, or whatever it is. It's just like having a good objective of like what you want to get better at is really important. I think being open to improving yourself in the kitchen is like a really great thing. And I think like these were not in any sort of specific order. Let me stop sharing. These were not in any like specific order or any sort of specific way. It's just ways in which that I've been able to balance and using these kind of productivity and process hacks and frameworks and techniques and strategies, or whatever the hell you want to call them, so that I can actually cook on a regular basis and not get stressed out about it. I'm able to actually make, seriously, like, and people that I've been helping have been seeing what I've created, and what they're creating for themselves. And I think that I think it's totally possible to do. You just have to have like a good framework in terms of like in different frameworks and applying them together, and so that you can actually like make meals for you and your family. So if you like this, like and subscribe. If you didn't, write a comment. If you want, you know, to check out Meal Machine OS, you can actually check it out below. It'll give you some resources today, which we actually go really deep into these frameworks and tactics so you can kind of get better at, learn a little bit more about this. And with that, have a beautiful day. Bye.